Hello, everybody. Just gotta grab some Uncharted music. The editor was murdered? What are you talking about? I'm gonna find an article, guys. Turn me down. I'm gonna find an article. Well, not article. This NeoGAF post. Yeah. Oop, don't look at that. That's not for you to look at. I thought I already put this in. Uncharted. Oh, it's a really old entry, so I need to type in TPS. So apparently this old NeoGAF thread got pulled back up because, you know, it's Uncharted season. Makes sense. So check out this old thread from NeoGAF. We're going to be taking a look at this as well as the Uncharted walking simulator. I'm going to type in simulator. And let's see what articles we get. We'll take a listen to them real quick and not be here any longer than we have to. Here we go, everybody. Let's zoom in. Okay, you guys can see that. Let's listen to this, see what it has to say. Let's go, Jeffrey.
On paper, Naughty Dog's Uncharted series is as generic as it gets. It's about a good-looking white, heterosexual man going on exciting globe-trotting adventures, killing bad guys and wooing a spunky blonde reporter. On this level, it's functional at best and banal at worst. But dig deeper and it becomes clear that Naughty Dog's bombastic blockbuster series quietly had a profound effect on the medium's development over the past several years. The first Uncharted wasn't particularly revolutionary, though it did feature some snappy dialogue and stunning visuals for its day. It was really 2009's Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, where Naughty Dog really went off the rails, literally in the case of its seminal train sequence, and managed to subtly provide a proof of concept for a type of video game that was still in its embryonic stage. The genre has since come to be labeled somewhat derisively as walking simulators, a video game with precious little interactivity and no game over state. Of course, the Uncharted games do have a failure state and you spend most of their running time engaged in third-person combat. On that level, they're still fairly traditional action games, but Uncharted 2 and its successors only dedicate a little over half of their running time to such mechanics. So what do you do the rest of the time? Not a lot, interactively. Sometimes you simply watch cutscenes and have zero input whatsoever. The rest of the time you're being funneled through intentionally frictionless scripted puzzles, or button tapping your way through automated platforming sequences. Technically you are still playing the game, but your agency is left out of your hands.
Pretty true. I mean, you could say this about RPGs though too. I mean, outside of the combat, you really just run around and buy stuff and then check out which next NPC will send you on the next part of your quest.
And yet, no one seemed to mind. Part of this is because it looks exciting. Naughty Dog's penchant for slick action choreography is so captivating the player doesn't even notice that they barely have any input on what's happening, if they have any at all. But on a purely mechanical level, leading Drake up through a boxcar dangling off a cliff is no more interactive than selecting Henry's potentially flirtatious dialogue in Through Watch or guiding Caitlin Greenbrier through her family's new abode in Gone Home. Yet it's not just the choreography that made such sequences work. In truth, everything needs to work in order for action-adventure junkies, the core audience for the game, to be engaged. The characters need to be charismatic. The dialogue needs to be clever and well-acted. The art direction and choreography need to be appealing, and the animations need to be emotive. If anything here fails, the whole enterprise suffers for it. And, quite frankly, that's usually the case for downtime in action games. I shudder to think of how many times I've encountered a banal narrative-heavy sequence in a game where no one actually gives a toss about that side of the equation. Can you imagine if Halo or Doom spent approximately 40% of their running time trying to tell a story or mixing up their core mechanics with lightweight platforming or puzzle elements? Chances are it wouldn't be good. Yet Naughty Dog went for it. And what a risk that was. This was before Journey and the Stanley Parable had proved to the world that these sort of mechanics like deviations had market value. Mind you, if people had found Uncharted 2's now 2D bits boring, it would have destroyed their enthusiasm for the game. Critics and players alike could have hated it. It could have killed the franchise. Maybe even ruined Naughty Dog.
So far, this article, I don't know what perspective it's coming from, but it seems to be framing this in an overly narrow point of view. Kind of talking about how Uncharted was like one of the first to do this, and how other games kind of followed suit. But then like games like this have been made for a long time, right? We've had all kinds of blends of different styles of adventure games, and different adventure games that blend different things like dating sims and just exploring a world, and social aspects like exploring a town, talking to people, all these different kinds of things. And it's very customary for games, especially RPGs, especially certain kinds of adventure games, to have a mix between their puzzle elements, which are obviously typically lighter than you would find in a puzzle game, and their action elements, which are typically lighter than you would find in a dedicated action game. So to compare that to Halo, and Doom's not exactly a good comparison. You should compare it to like Zelda and games that do a lot with talking to people and roaming around and downtime, right? Like I know this Uncharted is more linear in its sort of movie style and shooter style gameplay, but still it's got a lot of the same kinds of things as RPGs and adventure games do, not the same kind of things shooter games do, right? So to me, Naughty Dog wasn't doing anything so much out of the blue as a lot of games were trying to push how much narrative they would put into a game. I mean, you can go as far back as Metal Gear Solid or Resident Evil. What did they do? What do you do a lot of times in Resident Evil 1? Walk around a mansion and barely shoot zombies, right? With your really crude up, down, and middle aiming system. So that's not too different. They were trying to tell a story and set an atmosphere and have characters talk to each other, and you're supposed to stumble on the details and then do a couple of gamey thingies, like be all tense, right? But then it's not really an action game. Resident Evil is not an action game. That's why we came up with the genre survival horror. But that's just like saying, we didn't have another word for it. It's just more akin to adventure games than to shooters or other kinds of games like that. So let's keep going.
Uncharted 2 designer Richard Lamarchin said at an Indiecade talk in 2011 that many at Naughty Dog were worried about the lengthy non-violent village interlude midway through the title, in which our wounded hero kicks soccer balls, shakes hands, and pets yakbats rather than shoots, runs, or sneaks his way through a dangerous situation. But Lamarchin said he'd recently played Tale or Tales 2008 Offering the Graveyard, in which players control an elderly woman slowly walking through a graveyard. I thought that in the same way that the graveyard had created a space for me where I could reflect, so could our village, the designer said at the time. It was a peculiar notion, at the time, to want to merge the ponderous pace of minimally interactive mood piece with the white-knuckle bluster of a Hollywood action flick, but there you have it. Then again, in a weird way, it was the Uncharted series' conservative qualities that allowed Naughty Dog to sneak in its more avant-garde experiments. It's a bit like how Mad Max Fury Road quietly implemented a strong feminist message in what looked like and otherwise is a lightweight action flick about a couple of good-looking movie stars kicking ass and cool cars. The film became known for its gender politics after the fact, but it wasn't promoted this way. By making Uncharted such an old-fashioned matinee throwback with populist shooter elements, Naughty Dog and publisher Sony were better equipped to take a few chances.
This is also weird. Like this part right here. This is like, 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 just trying to frame this idea that they took all these chances with their game by putting in a quiet a quiet moment, right, or a downtime. Like games do this all the time with their pacing, and games do it more often with difficulty, right, when they are all one gameplay type, which is what you don't find in an adventure game. So, you're more likely to find the downtime in between menus or in the transition cutscenes or sometimes in the lead up or falling action of levels in just pure platformers or action games, stuff like that. But when you have an adventure game where it's more free to do different gameplay types and pepper in different things along with the story, you have moments like this all the time. You have like vistas and RPGs that you can walk to, and then you have just places you can chill out and just read stuff, right? Check out what the NPCs are saying. And you have moments of high intensity, like when you're in a dungeon, and then moments of low intensity, like when you're in town or going across the overworld. And then sometimes they pepper in story with like fun chats from Tales of Symphonia or the random party chats in Bravely Default, stuff like that. So this happens all the time, and it would seem like it's even more of a thing to do, especially when your game is copying a very cinematic like presentation. You're making a movie game, right? It looks like a movie. It kind of pretends to be a movie, and movies often have scenes where before the big action scene or before the big climax or whatever, you have a little bit of calm before the storm, and games do that all the time. To say it's weird to do that in a game, it just depends on which games you're talking about and what point of reference. Like if you really believed that Uncharted was a shooter, then yeah, this stuff seems weird. But then when you're like, no, Uncharted is an adventure game, you're like, oh, well, it makes more sense. And then you're like, and it's trying to be like a movie. You're like, oh, it makes a lot more sense then. And then people oftentimes mix up like, oh, Mad Max wasn't marketed this way, promoted this way. Like, yeah, but we already get that. Like the cover of Bioshock Infinite, it had just like, it had to be more stereotypical and common to what people find on the cover to, get its sales and promote itself to the audience so it can make its money back and kind of penetrate a wide audience. But they don't have to put like all of its most cutting edge or subversive or most meaningful themes right on the cover. You can do that in the game, but the cover is the cover, right? It's supposed to be on the box, on a store shelf, not really considered too far outside of those confines, right? And this happens all the time. Like in movies and games and stuff, they're complicated, but you gotta have a face, like an outward face. And it doesn't really, that's just part of the complex world that we live in, including how works are complex and how the marketing and the messaging of those works are complex. So this statement doesn't really mean too much to me either.
Of course, what was revolutionary for 2009 isn't so groundbreaking now. Uncharted 4 pulls all the same tricks with even greater craftsmanship. In many ways it's gone even further in this experimental direction with roughly only a third of its opening 8 hours dedicated to anything that could even remotely resemble an action game, though its first few minutes are appropriately rousing. And yet it's never boring. The jokes land. The story beats are appropriately moving. The dialogue sings, and it all looks glorious thanks to some of the best art direction and tech wizardry in the business. In a world that's already seen the likes of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, 30 Flights of Loving and Dear Esther, such bold pacing practices aren't quite as shocking as they were back in 2009. Yet Uncharted 4, for all its bombast, often feels more akin to those games than any of its big-budget contemporaries. And maybe the widespread popularity of more sedate games can be in some part attributed to the brilliant Uncharted, to a game that proved blockbusters could be played at a very different tempo.
Yeah, it's kind of lame. Uncharted 4 is getting pretty boring. It's pretty one note, no matter how you look at it. But people just say stuff like, oh, it's never gets boring, and the jokes land. Yeah, the jokes are pretty great. It gets boring quite often. And the story beats are not, they're not completely there, right? It has pacing issues, and it has thematic consistency issues, right? And you're sitting here trying to enjoy the game for what it wants to do most, which is, tell a story. It's not to be an interesting gameplay game. So then you're trying to focus on all the stuff they're doing, and then they put these huge long stretches of just climbing around doing nothing with very little quote-unquote jokes, very little story beats while you're doing that. Like, the game has issues. So even if you liked it, man, this stuff is long. Like, you're just doing like the same hold forward practically for so long. I'm playing the game for 10, 11 hours. And it doesn't have the pacing of a movie, doesn't have the pacing or the consistency of a game, right? It's somewhere in between, as adventure games often are, like a mix between a lot of different things. And I remember playing Uncharted 2 and 3 and thinking, well, 3, maybe they didn't need so much shooting, right? Maybe they could find something else to put in there or do something, right? And it looks like in Uncharted 4, they just filled it with a lot of empty climbing and a lot of the other stuff. But that has adverse effects, right? This other stuff isn't as interesting, and I feel like I'm not as good as the shooting when the few shooting moments do come up, and the shooting set pieces aren't as interesting. They don't have as much variation of enemies, and weapons aren't a consideration because those parts come and go so quickly. You're like, why do I even care what weapon I have? And taking out the enemies isn't that complicated, right? To worry about like ammo and all this stuff, it's just so sort of disjointed now, where its main focus doesn't seem to be on an action game. It just seems to be somewhere lost in between these other kinds of experiences. But oh well, it was a neat article, kind of gave me a little bit of history, a little bit of perspective, but ultimately just saying stuff. Like, and the whole idea, like, oh man, a game like this can be popular these days. You're like, people like movies, and people, believe it or not, don't really like to work for the gameplay, like the mass market of people, which is kind of what the video game industry it's grown, because it's filled with more and more of these kinds of people, right? Yeah, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 4, it's all this, it's like, he's talking about the slow moment in Uncharted 2, but in context, he was talking about what the trend is doing, right? And then at the very end, he talks about Uncharted 4. Of course, what was revolutionary in 2009 isn't so groundbreaking now. Uncharted 4 pulls all the same tricks, yet it never gets boring. The jokes land, the story beats are moving, blah, blah, blah. The most advanced tech went to the tree. So he's talking about Uncharted 2 up here to set the stage for talking about Uncharted 4, but it's all really the same through line. Yeah, like people really don't like. So it's like it's pretty obvious that people already like movies, and if you look at the success of something like The Walking Dead, I don't think this article mentioned The Walking Dead, but if you look at the success of something like that, you're like, okay, people like characters and they like story and they like being invested in these specific ways, and that doesn't necessarily matter how much interactivity you have. Just kind of make it light enough to where people can get through it, and make the interactivity enough to make it not completely worthless, right? Walking around and checking stuff may not be completely worthless depending on, what else is happening. But yeah, you can feel it. Do I already have this article in there? Let's see. Uncharted. Indicate Uncharted's likely inspiration. 2011. Wow. So I need to add this one, don't I? There's your music for today. I don't know. I don't really hear people talking about Uncharted. We're looking at all the stuff people have said about Uncharted along the way, and I really don't hear them talking about it in a level of sophistication that tells me that they're paying attention to it in a detailed way that they would even a movie, right? Like, let's break down the story. Let's consider what's actually happening here. Is this an Uncharted interview? Or Uncharted 2? Okay, Uncharted 2. I 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2 Okay, so yeah, like, even if you assume you like all this stuff, I've played so many indie games, and there's still so many important ones that people talk about that I haven't played, but it doesn't really matter. All right, so let's say, like, I played a lot of weird story experimental things and a lot of weird small jokey things, and some of my favorite games of specific types are still those weird indie experiments. So like, you can talk about them in a very specific way. So if, like, linear RPG, where is it? Hold on, guys. Linear RPG is really interesting. Right? This is linear RPG. And all you do is go left and right, and as you scroll, you get your health back when you touch these dots. And every time you walk enough, you're fighting invisible battles and you level up, right? This is linear RPG. And it's linear. It's called linear RPG because it's linear, and it's kind of a satire slash commentary on RPGs and their linearity anyway. Oh, see this extra area right here? See how hard the enemies are? Like when I walk past here, I'm dying a lot faster. And if I walk back and forth and grind a little bit, I get stronger and stronger. And you have to make sure you're strong enough to get past the next zone. Is there little random elements? Can I make it? Is it completely deterministic? Let's see. Yes, I made it. Haha. Oh, I'm gonna have to grind to get past this one. Like, okay, so that's funny, right? All you're doing is grinding and then going on, and the story is actually scrolling in the background. And if you take the time to read it as you're hitting left and right, which is pretty funny, the story it's just silly, it's goofy, and I think this game is hilarious, and I like it a lot. So we can consider this on what it does. We can consider its pacing. We can consider how long it takes to do the whole thing. We can consider how long it takes to get the joke, and if it's worth getting to the end, right? Consider the payoffs of like continuing to grind like this, and like how long the experience should be, or if there's anything meaningful past a certain point, right? Like, oh, I made it through right there. Ooh, this is too strong. I'm gonna make it back. Oh, I died. I lost all that experience points. Stuff like that. And then we can consider what the story is and how it's presented in the background and be like, how interesting is this experience? Same thing with Uncharted, right? We can consider, even if we like all the parts, how long it is. Does it get more interesting? How much time we're spending doing it? Like, what makes those kinds of things interesting? I made it. That was so stressful. There was some tension there, but you know, such our RPG. Look, this is an area of low difficulty, right? In this area, we just went through this long thing. It's at the end of the paragraph, so you can see that it corresponds. These lines aren't just random. They're not just random. But yeah, we can evaluate all this stuff, right? And look, foreshadowing. Up ahead, we see a lot of winding roads. We're like, whoa, this battle's gonna be hard. Better grind up. Do. Can I make? I'm not gonna make this one. No. So that's linear RPG. So we can consider what all the climbing sections do in Uncharted and how much story is actually being conveyed, and like what the value and merit is of going through all that space or not. And then we can consider how this combat is laid out. We can consider how much of it you get, and if you have sufficient time to learn things or even experiment and even have fun with it as if it were a game, or is it just there for whatever reason, right? Okay, so let's take a look at what this NeoGAF thread says. It's about Uncharted stuff. Make some points about the game, but I think the main argument is that common criticism. Let's take a listen.
A common criticism I hear about the Uncharted series, even among those who like the series, is that the gameplay, specifically the combat, is poor, mediocre, boring, filled with bullet sponges, generic cover shooter, etc. And, after revisiting the series through the PS4 collection, where I paid particular attention to combat mechanics, level design, and encounter design, I can safely say that people who have those criticisms are either out of their damn minds, or have been playing the games in the least fun way imaginable. I am going to be discussing Uncharted 2 and 3 here, because while the first game is still an okay TPS, it was a mere stepping stone for what was accomplished in the sequels. Yes, Uncharted 3 has good combat too, apart from a few shit encounters and worse hit reactions. It makes some nice changes to make the combat even more mobile. Uncharted 2 is still tops though. Uncharted combat is about movement. I cannot stress that enough. Yes, there is cover in the games and yes, it's important. But it's not there to simply hide behind and poke your head out to take shots the entire time, and doing so would ignore the vast amount of tools you have to be mobile in combat. I'll start with player mechanics. In combat, Drake runs faster than normal, and he still has access to his roll, climbing abilities, jumping, and melee. These all serve to empower the player to move around in the combat arenas. Hipfire is extremely important for this as well, because it allows you to engage in combat without slowing down, and is very effective given its generous auto-aim. You also have regenerative health, which was not something that was decided on a whim, or to cater to modern design trends, but to encourage you to move around in combat because you don't have to worry about taking permanent damage. That's what the cover is for, to recover, survey your surroundings, and take out a few guys before going on the move again. The melee system also allows you to weaken enemies with gunfire, and then knock them out with a single hit without losing momentum, or to engage in fisticuffs to stop an enemy from gunning you down at close range. These mechanics all combine to give the player an incredibly scrappy, fluid moveset. The 2-weapon limit is also part of this design decision. Not only does each weapon have a fairly specific function, forcing you to try and pick up different ones for specific enemy types, but they also run out of ammo a decent amount so you have to leave cover and to pick up more. The simplicity of the controls and mechanics for all these actions are to lack of depth. Either, they are simple so that it's easy manageable for you to do all the crazy mobile adventurer combat without resting with the controls, trying to remember how to do a hand-to-hand combo or do some timing-based button presses while you're scaling a wall to get to higher ground.
In general, this guy can spend less time telling you what the game is and just talk about what it is. Especially when he says, like, all this stuff wasn't decided on a whim and stuff like, yeah. You don't have to go as far as saying the developers actually thought about stuff when they put stuff in. Like, that should be assumed. And then to cater to modern design trends, like, who knows, man? Like, let's just talk about what the game does instead of worrying about how the developers felt, supposedly.
The level design facilitates and rewards movement. All the combat arenas are in some way about verticality. These vantage points reward players for scrambling up them in a shootout with a height advantage, and frequently power weapons as well. Each arena feels really unique and handcrafted to offer some twist on player mobility, and always gives tons of options to player. Some highlights included a shootout where you are flipping around a signpost, using the signs as cover from enemies that come out in various directions, an arena in a blizzard where the toppled train cars act as vantage points, and a ship graveyard where the player can dive into the water and swim between floating platforms, to avoid enemies and gain better tactical ground. Pieces are all about movement in combat too. What Uncharted gets that other cinematic games don't, is that the pieces aren't about passive spectacle, but are actually special level and counter design tweaks that force you to fight in an even more mobile way using the core mechanics. A shootout jumping from jeep to jeep as they explode, running around in a collapsing building dodging debris as you hit fire, fighting in an exploding airplane as cover slides around dynamically. Pieces in Uncharted shouldn't be talked about separately from the game's combat, because they are a part of it, fully enmeshed in the game's level and counter design.
Not all the set pieces.
Yes, the enemies are designed to make you move too. I always hear the enemies in Uncharted are bullet sponges, and no, they're not really apart from some specific enemies. More on that in a bit. They may take a little longer to kill than other shooters' enemies, but that's actually a good thing. Why? Well, first of all, they take more damage the closer you are. This again, is to get you to move and take advantage of your toolset in the levels to get closer to enemies. And if you could drop every enemy in 12 shots without headshots, then you'd never have to leave cover. The enemies have lots of tactics to get you to move. Snipers have laser sights where the only way you can avoid their one-hit KO is if you move and roll around. Grenades are meant to flush you out of cover. Enemies are pretty good at flanking and rushing you as well, which means you have to move to different vantage points and take advantage of your melee and hip fire. Shield enemies force you to use grenades, or run around looking for them, or to be mobile and get behind them. Now for the actual bullet sponge enemies, the armored guys. I really don't get the hate for them. They're intimidating and take a bunch of bullets, but their effect in encounters is great. They usually only have shotguns, which means you have to take them out before they reach you, and they slow walk, so it's about taking them out, destroying their armor, which provides some nice visual feedback to make up for the abuse they can deal with, while managing the quicker, lighter enemies.
Okay. Thank you for pausing naturally.
Around them, adding another dynamic and priority threat assessment in combat. So, you could play the game mostly as a stop and pop shooter despite all the efforts and advantages the game gives you to do otherwise. But that's pretty boring and would likely take a lot longer and probably be harder too. Or, you could play like it's intended and it should look something like this. 2 minutes 45 seconds in and on. Not only is it fun and satisfying to play, but it looks awesome too. I was too lazy to upload my own gameplay, but all the shootouts in the game can be done as fluid as this, and the demo player didn't even make use of some of the vertical arrangements in this particular level.
Hey, Richard from Digital Foundry here with a bonus video I've
I don't know, that person's really selling the game in a weird way. I like the idea that, you know, it's moving, but here's some. He's not using a lot of basic shooter terminology to describe how this game works, right? Like, you know, it's annoying taking bullets all the time. And sure, you have regenerating health, but it's really weird fiction-wise. Like, Drake's just getting shot all the time from all angles in Uncharted 4 at least. And as you're mobile, like, sure, you can get your health back, but I just don't like that at all. Yeah, just take bullets. That's what a shooter should be like, especially a guy with no armor. No thanks. I don't think they let you throw back grenades in Uncharted 4. I tried to do it. It looks like the aim in this game, the guys aren't nearly as accurate as they are in Uncharted 4. And it looks like you have more health because the screen isn't going gray. I'll turn this down a little bit. I can't believe they took the prompts off the screen in Uncharted 4 completely. You know what I hated about this game? When you're engaged in hand-to-hand with an enemy and you grab him, the other enemies will just shoot right through him to hit you and it doesn't even hurt their allies. Like, that's garbage. Come on, design a better game. Like, games do all this awkward stuff where, you know, they give you lots of invincibility frames when you go into melee attacks, like in Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. And, like, that's less awkward than not having invincibility, being trapped in a cutscene, and that's even less awkward than enemies just not hurting each other when you're trying to deal with them in cutscenes or with melee attacks. So these enemies look like they're doing almost nothing. And they're actually running around a lot more than just like shooting Drake constantly. Oh, Drake's animations are not so fluid. They look pretty stiff.
Damn it, I'm trapped down here.
I was especially reminded of how good Uncharted's combat is because I finally picked up Tomb Raider Definitive Edition and have made good progress in that. It's funny because many people think Tomb Raider has better combat, which kinda boggles my mind. I've heard that it has more depth, which if you measure depth in terms of useless upgrades, you may be correct. But the combat in that game really does boil down to hiding behind cover, and easily gunning down the enemies, because they drop really easily. Most of them don't have guns. The encounters don't make use of the open level so they can't flank you. You can't hip fire so there's no point in trying to run around and make use of traversal skills. In combat as you'll only soak up damage as you slowly over the shoulder aim. You carry tons of ammo and don't pick up enemy guns so you don't have to leave cover to retrieve more. There's an abundance of explosive barrels placed around enemies to take them out even easier, and only seldom do they throw molotovs or send armored guys at you to flush you out. So yeah, Uncharted is a great TPS series beyond just pretty graphics, good story, and spectacle. Uncharted 4 seems like it's changing a lot of people's minds on the games, but the truth is that while it looks incredible and a huge leap for the franchise, it's just building on what was already a rock-solid combat philosophy that is unlike any other TPS out there, even among its imitators.
I wouldn't say it's unlike any other TPS. Like, come on. I mean, in Uncharted 4, I tried doing that, like moving around all the time, right? But the enemies are so accurate and they hit you from so far away so quickly. What the heck? Compared to what I saw in 3, it's just like, what's going on here? Uncharted 4 seems to be giving player a lot more freedom in how they approach things, replaying the trilogy. I think some of the combat areas are pretty large and open with enemies everywhere, but I don't know what they mean about freedom to do stuff. It looks like you have less ability. Like the gunplay is more straightforward, where enemies are more accurate. They rush you too fast, so you can't like size them up and break them up into smaller groups and do this and that. You have less grenades and less about throwing grenades back and stuff like that. And Uncharted 4 so far seems way more straightforward. I've had some fun times on Uncharted 2 where you're like leaping over stuff and punching people and then throwing a grenade and then keep moving. You're like, yeah, it's fun to keep moving in general and to keep your action frequency high, especially when it's stuff that you can easily discern, like moving through an environment. But I don't know. I mean, this thread, the thread, the guy isn't contrasting his appreciation of Uncharted with any other quote-unquote good third-person shooter. Picking on Tomb Raider is not how you build a strong case for yourself, but let's see how he plays here. I hate that, like, you getting shot because I'm punching someone. Quit shooting me. Look, getting shot. He just keeps shooting his friend. It's cool how they give you some free cover. Man, these guys are not accurate at all. What is this? I mean, you guys have been watching me play Uncharted 4. Like, you step out and just like brrr, bullets peppering you all over the place. Try to walk out from cover and like do anything, bullets. You're getting shot. You take cover, you're still getting shot because the cover is just like some skinny thing. I mean, it's nice to have some of these cool options. It's nice to get a nice fluid combat system going. It's nice to have things be kind of simple and good. It seems like the guy's making an argument that, you know, Uncharted's third-person shooter combat's like, I don't know, good enough. Halo's firefight in Reach. It's like my favorite part of Halo. Like I wasn't really good at the multiplayer. So I really enjoyed playing the firefight, especially with friends, up to 3 or 4 friends. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that freaking Uncharted 4 does. Like, you peek over the edge, and you're like, okay, let me just do something real quick. As soon as he gets up there, bullets. Everyone's shooting at bullets. And I was trying to figure out if Uncharted 4 was really letting you play around with last known position, so the enemies think you're one place and you can kind of juke them. Yeah, it couldn't do it yet. He said in the article he's playing on normal on both of these videos, I think. See, this looks like it's working better as a game. You know, you reach a high point, you kind of hold it, you keep the goons off you, kind of like in Resident Evil 4. You swim around. I remember I was talking to Marcus just earlier, and we were talking about how the this one of the parts in this part of the game, and maybe a little later, was one of the best parts about this game, Uncharted 3, as far as firefights and stuff. But there's one part, I think right after this area, right after this part, you try to climb on top of the boats and do something, and I remember that being just terrible. They had like such good aim, and then the game would reload you at a checkpoint, but they didn't give you a long range gun, and we were like, how the heck are we supposed to fight these super long range guys without a long range gun? It was just terrible. Terrible. So much of that junk. So yeah, the way he describes Uncharted's combat is pretty neat. The way the videos were showing what he could do in 2 looked pretty good. But that's not what's happening in 4. In 4, it's definitely not setting it up to where, you know, with the progression of level challenges, you can learn and get better and then, like, enjoy the game on that level. 4 just seems really devoid. Like, you've done enough shooting in the first 4 games, including Vito, so we're going to just do this instead. I don't like it. It's not like I was too big of a fan of the shooting anyway, especially when I had enough of it in Uncharted 2 and 3. I'm like, more shooting, really? I had enough. Well, that's about it for that. Let's beat this game. Oh, no. Give me that experience points. Give me that. It's in the game. If you keep running on the end point, you die. See how I made it, guys? Wait, what's going on? I made it to the end of the game, but it looked like there was another branch that I couldn't access. What happened? See that branch? Did I walk by that branch earlier? Is there a secret in this thing that I could get to an alternate story? Maybe I should actually read the text in the back a little more closely. No, this is it. It was just this one linear adventure. Hey look, I'm playing linear RPG without holding the right button. How cool is that? Oh man. So third-person shooter, right? You guys want to chat about third-person shooters? they're containing what they did in The Last of Us. Lots of walking, exposition, optional dialogue, notes, collectibles, and some battle arenas to put it tie together. So, like, okay, let's talk about The Last of Us, because I don't like that game either. Some janky mechanics in that game. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how things work. Some weird allowances like super invincible Ellie. I can forgive that. And, collect stuff, walk into places, collect stuff, whatever. Okay, that's not my problem with The Last of Us. I think the game like The Last of Us could be very successful. I mean, it really is a lot like Uncharted 4. And, like, I like the story enough, but then I don't like the fact that they bounce back and forth between cutscenes, which are very much like TV shows and movies, and then they try to do these long, drawn-out game simulation-style storytelling where there's just, like, long, drawn-out nothingness, very simple traversal, and then have characters talk. That's not interesting. That's, like, a lot of bloated space, right? Because on the one hand, TV shows and movies benefit from very careful control of their details and very compressed space, very compressed time. They can make cuts and do flashbacks and do all the stuff that makes it such a rich storytelling medium. But then if you try to cement yourself in a simulation experience where time is continuous, space is continuous, there's no teleporting, no jumping, and everything's just kind of happening, and then you try to shove story on top of that, that's just kind of like, you know why life is real boring? You know why people tell stories of life? It's because living in real life is drawn out, boring, and they concentrate those details to give you to the meaningful parts, contrasting one perspective versus another, change over time, not change, let's experience all the same time that I just lived in a real sense. Like, no, give me the change. The change is what's important. So sometimes I feel like those two contrasting ways of telling a story contrast too much. They're just really weird. And then you know what games do to try to fill in the space when they're trying to tell a story over small dialogue details? They give you almost nothing to do interactive-wise, so you can literally pay attention to what they're saying, because otherwise you'd be playing a game and your focus would be taking too much attention, right? And that's kind of a bad thing. It's like, give me something not interesting to do, but slightly engaging, and then play a dialogue thing on top. And you're like, ugh. I'd rather have like an interesting dialogue thing that I can do and like move around, maybe play around in, express myself in, write some kind of scene or something, and then move on, and then have that sharply contrast with pure gameplay bits. People made fun of a lot before of games that are just cutscenes and then just pure gameplay, but I think that's a superior way of telling a story so far. One, just like in movies, it creates a contrast of scenes so that a scene is dedicated to a specific type of storytelling, which is efficient and effective. You can have a very slow transitional scene in a movie. You can have a flashback. You can have a montage. Those are very specific kinds of scenes. Or you can have a scene play out in real time in a movie, but that's contained within a scene, and you usually don't mix and match those. You have one set thing you're going for. Same with video games. If the gameplay tells its own kind of experience, you can concentrate and focus on that. And then if the storytelling is its own kind and you want to use a different technique, you can concentrate on that and put them two back to back. I don't know why people started making fun of it so much. It's doing what each does best, and stories are all about a series of conveyed scenes put back to back. So why are people freaking complaining? I don't understand. Oh, so annoying. So people I think they don't understand what stories are, and they keep thinking that that a story is like, they think it's something real or something. It's kind of hard to explain, but they don't recognize how fake stories are, how constructed, how arranged, how arbitrarily assembled they are. And that's why I like stories, because the construction of them itself is interesting and reflects storyteller, and the more the storyteller understands the craft and the tools that they're using to tell the story, the more meaning I can draw out of it. And when you're really trying to understand why people are telling stories in the first place and why a lot of people tell stories, is to convey ideas and meaning. And if you truly understood how complex and how hard it is to learn in real life and to convey ideas, you would be ready and willing to grasp on any tool, method, or technique to try to convey things more effectively. And I think more people should pay attention to the craft of storytelling in various mediums. But they don't. They just want to get their characters and their feeling and run away with some kind of cheesy romance. So we have these weird experimental mixes like Uncharted and Last of Us, and I felt like the stealth thing. I don't like stealth. Okay, guys, I just don't like stealth. I think it's a bunch of waiting around, and usually very poorly, poor feedback for how the game works. Camera issues anyway when it's a third-person game. Just like waiting for your chance to sneak by. Like that is not interesting. If the longest I want to wait on something to happen is like waiting for a Mario platform to rotate so I can jump on it. Like that's it. I don't want to have to wait to see a little guy walk around and pretend like I'm not there, and then after I alert them, pretend like I disappeared or something. Like I just don't like it. So in general, I'm not a fan of stealth. So I didn't really like the gameplay in Last of Us, and but beyond that, I usually don't like it when they try to do dialogue stuff as you're doing things anyway. I know they put low-level interactivity, like walking around, and then they put the scene that plays out around you, but one, when you're in control of the camera, you miss a lot of stuff, so that's annoying. Two, when you're walking, that's still taking up your attention, because if you're just focused on where you can go or where you're going, you're going to miss stuff. So it's not as elegant of a solution as just putting in a cutscene and letting you do gameplay. I think Kid Icarus Uprising is the greatest third-person shooter on the planet right now. I really love that game. And it just has dialogue, and it shoves it right on top of an on-rails mission. And you don't have to shoot anything in these on-rails missions for the most part, so you can just kind of let them ride out. But for the most part, just shoving a story on top like that is just really dense, right? It's really hard to pay attention to both and to do both well. So, you know, they put it on like an invincible mode or an easy mode if you kind of just want to look at the story, and that's acceptable or whatever, as far as sliding the difficulty down. But in general, at least Kid Icarus never stops being a game for any moment. They may have like a couple of super short cutscenes, but like those are just introductions. And Kid Icarus does so much more. It has more weapons, it has more level variety types. Its core gameplay is really a mix of three things: arena boss battles, third-person shooter, like linear environments, right? And then on-rails shoot-'em-up missions. And almost every level has those three, so that's a lot more variety to work with right off the bat. Like Uncharted so far has had 0 bosses, right? 0 mini boss. I guess you could count that tank set piece a boss, but that's just one. One boss in the entire Uncharted 4 so far. What the heck? That means that for as few encounters they have, there's very little to differentiate them. And sure, a couple of the armored enemies finally showed up in Uncharted 4, but that's not enough. Kid Icarus, every level, new enemies, new level elements, new story, new boss, and then twisting those elements up anyway, right? You get a varied progression of those elements, new secrets. That's like 5 things already that they do in every level, not to mention the 3 different gameplay types. Not to mention that you can go into every level with new equipment, like powers, or a new weapon. There's 114-ish weapons in the game, and a lot of different powers to mix and match. That's a lot of variation. That's a lot of variation. That's the game you're playing. That's interesting. It's got a lot going on there. So here's what I'm saying about Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us. If they weren't so married to this idea that they can basically tell a movie with really poor pacing and trying to keep everything continuous, then they could have focused and even indulged in the fact that each of these types of interactive experiences are different and they concentrated their effect, right? Instead of just having walking around doing nothing with some dialogue, actually have a scene, a dialogue heavy, story heavy scene in which you have more interactivity than just walk around, push a crate, let down a thing. And it's kind of cool that some of that dialogue happened naturally in the field, but there's only so much of that that can stay interesting, as every environment is just like, look for the thingy, climb the rock, pull over the thing, mash X, whatever. Like, you could have done more interesting things with the dialogue, like the kind of stuff you would see in a movie, right? If a movie did that with its dialogue, I think people would not like it. I mean, sure, it sounds a little bit experimental, like just have the characters walk in the field and talk the whole time, and then obviously the strength of that film would be in the strength of the writing and the actors, right, to really to keep you engrossed. But like, a lot of the conversations in these games aren't even that interesting. They're like side conversations, right? They're like, oh, did you hear the story about a thing? Or how come you never like this? You're like, okay, those are neat. Those are kind of like the fun chats in Tales of Symphonia, the party chats in Bravely Default, or some of the extra dialogue in Zelda, whatever. But that's not like the meat, right? We want some characters that actually engage physically and with dialogue in a scene that's actually has a pivotal action plot point to the rest of the story. And if it's just downtime chit chat, well, that's just downtime chit chat. Come on, like, you can step it up a lot more than that. And yet they keep all of that stuff in the cutscenes. So when Joel has to make a decision about something, or Drake, like, it's a cutscene, hands off, and then you know what you get to do? Really boring climbing with a couple of chit chats. You're like, this storytelling's so good. Like, it's not. I would not make that trade ever. Yeah, I don't even think. Yeah, I don't even think depth is an issue here. It's all relative on how much you force the player to do it, and like how often you repeat it before it gets old. So you can have a taste of a lot of different things as long as it doesn't overstay its welcome. But then overall, you have to wonder, like, what are you building up? What are you building up for? And if you keep giving them a taste of stuff and you don't give them an actual meal, that's kind of another issue. And Last of Us has cover, apparently. We don't have a lot of Last of Us articles in the database. But it's dumb. Like, I hate it when people keep saying like video game stories aren't on the level of movies yet. And like, yes and no. It just kind of depends. But it's stuff like this that I think are further away from being in the quality of movies than the games they make fun of, right? If you look at the quality of the characters, how they're telling their story, like how messages are conveyed, you got a lot of stuff going for you. Looks like we're talking about story now. Got a lot going for you with other kinds of games, but you know, just because Uncharted looks and sounds like a movie, people are like, oh, and the acting is so good. Acting, who cares? Who cares about acting? You know how many storytelling mediums have acting in it? Only movies, only plays in movies and TVs, but then there's still the written word, and there's still visual. And people often talk about like the subject matter, like the type of content, how grown up it is, how unconventional it is, how adult, how serious it is, how it's addressing all these things you don't normally see in games. You're like, oh, it depends on what games you're playing, one. There's so much going on. No, that's okay. Oh, why did you move, you thingy? And people often talk about like the subject matter, like the type of content, how grown up it is, how unconventional it is, how adult, how serious it is, how it's addressing all these things you don't normally see in games. You're like, oh, it depends on what games you're playing, one. And two, I don't have a preference for what kinds of things I see. I usually have a preference for the quality of things I see. So I really don't care if I never play a video game that talks about the appreciation of bananas, right? I love bananas, but it doesn't really matter if I never play a game that focuses on that. However, if a game does come up and then it does a poor job of talking about bananas, I'm not going to be like, oh man, it's addressing one of my favorite fruits. And you're like, who cares? They did a poor job. Like, do a good job no matter what you decide to focus on, whether it's mainstream or not. Like, I don't care. There's enough good things in the world for people not to worry too much about any one medium or any one small section of a thing to have like 100% representation of all the other things, right? Certain mediums do things better, right? Some mediums are visual, some are better because they don't rely on visuals, and so on and so forth. There's a lot going on. Stupid Donkey Kong 64. So like, don't worry about it. I'm not sitting here, I'm not fighting a war with games. I don't care to worry too much about what other people decide to put in their games. That's their business. It's their hard work that's going into these things. It's their choice. It doesn't really matter. And the game space doesn't need more games like XYZ. It just needs good games. And beyond that, I think there are enough good games. Now my focus is we need a culture or a community that is able to talk about all the hard work and goodness that are put into the games that exist. So I don't really care that the ratio of good games to what you might want to call cash-ins or throwaway or whatever. I don't care if that shrinks or gets bigger. Each one of us has a responsibility to understand these things, the stuff that we like better, and then to talk about it and have better conversations, because that's all that really matters. Because I could talk about one game for like 10 years. I've talked about the original Mario Brothers on my blog for like 5-6 years, and I'm still doing stuff, and I still kind of play that game on my 3DS. Like, I don't need new games, people. I can make games. I don't need new games. I can play the same old games. I can keep digging, and I can continually find enjoyment. And that's probably it for our talk today, guys. I could talk about Kid Icarus Uprising. That game is so good. We could watch a level from Kid Icarus Uprising and I could talk about it. If you guys want to see, if you want me to talk about Kid Icarus Uprising and TPS, give me a level to talk about. Or I can talk about Boss Rush. Your pick. Is my friend Lucario player, the only one who did a level 9 playthrough of Kid Icarus Uprising? Oh my gosh. This is just some guy who got a capture card and decided to record himself playing level 9 on all the levels of Uprising, which I might admit is pretty freaking difficult. Like, it was a worthy challenge and I loved it. But I don't think this player is so good. And he has some pretty powerful weapons. Yeah, he doesn't have a capture card. He records off his screen. Maybe we'll find a better quality. Sorry, dude. 2 years ago, this guy probably has a capture card. Nobody else is on level 9.
Uprising in the last episode. Troops! Oh.
Sorry, go on.
We have a fortress near the entrance to the underworld in Reaper Valley.
Which is where? Reaper Boulevard? But seriously, thank goodness we don't have to go there, right?
I love the jokes in this game. They're funnier than in Uncharted 4. Alright, so far we saw a bunch of different enemies. The guy who spits out a smoke ring is particularly interesting because you can fly through it. Your classic big enemy versus little targets. Looks like he has a cannon arm. Interesting choice. Killing all the enemies in the set nets you extra points. We'll see it happening right... Where is it? There, the plus 300 points right there.
Reapers. Anyone who's played the original Kid Icarus will know Reapers. In the original game, you actually start off in the underworld and you climb up to the heavens.
That's the Princess Bubblegum's voice actress?
But no, you're dealing with Reapers right from the start of the game.
Yeah, Adrian got his capture card.
You're gonna see what makes them so annoying.
Are they
Reapers.
Reaper eyes?
This is really bad.
We need to find you a safe route. Down there is your only option.
Welcome to the bulk of the Reaper's line of sight. We are going to be going through this tight ravine, having to dodge rock formations with shulms on the top and bottom. Topping it all off, there's going to be occasional Reapers here and there. Yeah! Well, okay, I think you put it best there. Things are really heating up. Not in a good way for me, though. This level can get actually quite irritating. This area is actually quite irritating if you're not good at, well, knowing when not to shoot, I guess. The thing is that shulms, they're not really that bad. It's just that if you shoot them at, you know, if you shoot them at close range...
Already in this flying part, I've seen about 7 enemy types. And normally you just kind of shoot them all, like that guy blocks your stuff and then he exposes himself. That's a nice little shield first, attack later enemy. These things are cool because if you get too close, they poison you. So you're shooting them early. The eyeballs are standard enemy, but they shoot homing shots, so they give you plenty of time to reflect and react. There's these guys which stress your aiming, and you have to hit the little pearls. I like those guys a lot.
I gotta say, I love this part of the music that's coming up. In fact, I might actually be quiet for that first time being quiet for the music.
Harpies for the quick fire shot.
Being this, well, easy. Alright, let's do it. I got every one of them. Actually, no, there's still some mono eyes off in the distance. Ah, who cares? I'll let one mono eye live. Oh, Reaper! As you saw there, it saw me there. The red thing is its line of sight. If you go within it, it's going to just summon Reapers.
Those hand crawler enemies are pretty cool. They crawl up on the walls.
Try not to fly in its line of sight, just saying.
You usually try to shoot everything before they get to you, right?
That, we are almost out of the ravine.
I didn't realize how much movement there was on the screen. Like, enemies can be in any quadrant of the screen and zip in from behind the screen, too. So that's pretty cool.
3, 2, 1, contact.
Oh, Veridi. Oh. I like this part. You can still shoot at the enemies even though
There's no
Kid's
chance
dodging
of
stuff.
getting from above. You'll have to break through the front.
Time to walk on the bridge. Walk on the bridge.
Here we go!
race to the door.
Pit, are you alright?
Alright.
Never better.
Then let's get moving.
Look, basic timing traps, right?
This fortress.
Basic, right? So they put it at the beginning,
Not nearly
and he
as
skips it.
intimidating as looks right off the bat. You have a guillotine starting off there, which actually does hurt you. Yeah, guillotines hurt. Who would have thought? Anyway,
doesn't need that food.
Main gimmick of this area, as we get into it, is going to be that there are Reapers about, and you have to stay out of their line of sight. Technically, you can fight them if you so wish. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and give this one a shot right here. If you want to do brief invincibility, that's a really, really good power to have. As you can
This is like the only level it's not the only level invisibility is good, but it's like the obvious use of it.
susceptible to it. Let's see how I can do
Oh,
here.
you're just using
Once again,
invincibility,
they do
not
a lot of
invisibility?
damage. They are really, really dangerous, so it is in your best interest to stay out of their line of sight. See, he only actually got one hit off of me, though, but that still did like a quarter of my health immediately. I do not like Reapers. For the most part, I'm going to be staying out of their line of sight.
Why does nobody know how to
By the
play
name of
this
the
game
chapter,
extremely
think it's
well? I
best
wish
to
I
stay
had
out
taken
of the
video of me
Reapers' line
playing. Oh my gosh, the boss rush was something to talk about. So that guy's gonna explode in poison unless he melees it. And look, he got poisoned because it exploded before he finished it off. So even though the enemies look like they could just stand around, there is there's typing created in order to which ones you should attack and for what distances. And this guy kinda just chugged in there. Chugged in there? Is that even a verb? Rushed in there. Oh, this guy's cool.
Humans get frustrated, even destructive.
So he's playing this whole level with a cannon, right? Not easy to aim with, and he's not using the charge shots, but it's strong.
I'll do my best. Now then, let's proceed.
Oh, they're so cute together.
Look, directly off the beaten
I don't know
path.
why
It's a
I found
secret.
like that scene. Anyway,
But when you
secret
go in here,
area
it's a
right
secret
over
room
here.
instead of just giving it to you for free, right?
You want to do a melee combo.
And it's got
on
lots
the-
of dangerous
complete,
enemies.
Forgot that was there. You want to do a melee combo on this wrecking ball, and it's going to move it down, causing something to change later in the level. We'll actually get into that when we see it. Heading
can even
over
drop
here,
down there if you wanted to.
Welcome to a really, really Jerkish mechanic.
Uh-oh, there's an order around your pin.
And that guy kills you in one hit, so it's pretty dangerous down here.
Rush from one of those will another.
Sounds neat. Not to mention totally unfair.
Fair
He's doing a
enough.
good job.
Stay away from it. Try breaking nearby rocks to find a way out.
Poison. So we have poison here, and we have an instant kill enemy while we're trying to avoid it.
So poison,
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
that almost
okay.
killed
I
him.
thought for
There's
sure that
poison
was gonna
pits, an
launch
instant
right
kill
into,
enemy, and
friggin'
rocks and other
side
enemies, and then this
back
site at the exit door, which is hilarious because the beginning of the game showed you that the doors could have cutting things, and he just like tried to rush right through, which is funny. So that whole room was a pretty good death trap. Not even too deadly too, but if you panic, you could die in one hit, which is always kind of scary.
Pets again are not very tough. It's just that they give you something else to deal with whenever you have other enemies around. And
Man, talk about the on rails parts inside the non-on rails missions.
This guy right here.
This guy's
guy
pretty
has
strong.
Probably my favorite name of any underworld army baddie. Ever.
Why does he keep
Guy's
attacking it
official
even though he
name, I am
can't
dead
hurt it?
serious, is Torto Lunk. Yeah. He's a big armored tortoise and he's called Tortolunk. Sounds like a name of a Pokemon actually to me. I don't know.
So these enemies will sometimes jump and shoot purple beams at you, and this guy will summon more enemies. So like you can kill him, then you can kill this guy before he summons more of the other guys. Oh, two poison guys and a wind guy that draws you into the poison guy, and then he melees you back outward, right? That's what this whole enemy combination is all about. So even though we've seen this guy before in isolation and we've seen the other guys in isolation, it's a really cool combination. You're like, oh, it's not so hard to do level design when you actually have freaking enemy variety.
Full of secret passage. If you want to get every treasure chest here, you have to be incredibly diligent. In fact, I'm even afraid that I might miss a few in here, just because there's that many secrets. In fact, here is the end of the treasure chest. That'll get it. Oh, a terrible pistol. I'm sure I'm gonna use that. I haven't really decided like what weapons I'm gonna use. I'm kind of just taking them as I get them. I was actually kind of sad though because I was wanting to use a twin bellows cannon for this level because I freaking love the twin bellows cannon. Whenever I gotta stay away, and there was a suplee there, and I think I missed it already because my weapon makes it. The twin bellows cannon is like stupid rapid fire.
Oh, these
Like, it's
zigzags?
the most rapid fire
So you have to melee the spawning
I love
pot
using it
in
so
order
much
to
when
take
you
out
just
the
hang
snakes.
back and fire,
The
like,
snakes also have
so
poison, so now you're poisoned and you're
really
losing
fun.
even more
I
health.
hope that I get a chance to use one at some point though, but I just haven't had it. And as we step through here, you're going to be seeing, well, one of the most well-known enemies in Kid Icarus history.
Oh man, this guy is annoying. The tempura wizard who turns into a piece of tempura will kill you in one hit. So that's pretty crazy too.
No, it's really not. Anyway, there aren't any hospitals in this game.
What? What am I going to do?
Calm down, kid. I can help you with this too. If you're turned into an eggplant like
That's the rock you knocked down earlier.
after a while.
You can get across there with just a jump glide if you have the power.
Everyone loves the eggplant.
Otherwise,
loser.
it's a
If
rock.
they hit you, you get turned into an eggplant, you are helpless for a few seconds. It also, in my opinion, it always feels like to me it becomes harder to get down earlier. This is where it ended up, and you're going to want to dash across here to get yourself a treasure chest. You could not get this otherwise. I believe if you have a sky jump ability, maybe you can do it, but I don't know for sure. You want to make sure not to shoot while you're down here, by the way. They say that you don't want to fall down here. You actually do. There's a couple of really good secrets down here. There's that thing,
Yeah,
which is
if
the
you
club
shoot that
wizard.
enemy,
If you shoot
he
that,
unlocks and he's
it's going to
huge.
come out. It's going to come out of that imprisonment, and it is a force to be
Well, I've never known about this. This is where the Zodiac
Hold
treasure
on
is?
here. There is yet another Zodiac chamber. We go all the way to the end of it, and we get ourselves
Taurus claws?
Taurus arm.
Taurus arm, interesting.
Definitely want to grab that.
I could
always
probably-
like grabbing the
So like
Zodiac
right here they hid a
Like,
secret behind a
I don't
secret.
wanna
That's
grab
classic
it.
Mario
I
stuff.
haven't gotten the Zodiac
Every time you fall down the death pit, you're like, I gotta get out of here. But that one was specifically designed to where you don't shoot stuff because that one enemy will pretty much clobber you. And then when you're not shooting stuff, you're calmer and you might look for the different colored. Yeah, you pretty much need to get out if you activate that guy.
I really hate Cluster Skulls. I
Oh,
really
look,
do.
double
Hear that thudding?
timing
That is just
challenges.
blocking. Yeah, it's that powerful.
Oh, now a wind guy with the timing challenges.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
And it
oh,
actually
God.
sucked
oh,
him
God.
back
No,
off.
no, no.
Yeah, and now he's in
No!
danger. See how the
No,
two,
get
the
away,
verticality
get
of
away,
these two
get away,
sections
get away,
work
get away,
together?
get away. Oh, why did I choose a cannon for this level? No. Okay. Out we are.
So this is already cool. Yeah, Clobber Skull. That's a
No,
sweet.
I thought I saw it reaching up here for me. Okay. I want that burger, but I'm probably not going to deny.
So even though his gun was strong, he didn't have a lot of foot speed, right? So he got put down in the pit. And already we have a lot of theme and variation of all the pieces we've seen so far. Death pits, certain enemy combinations, and layered
We want
verticality.
to go to another alternate route. We are finally actually getting into what we needed to play on this intensity for because there is a 5 gate right there.
Man,
Before we head there, though, I think I'm gonna hop on this grind.
well, this level has tons of
Believe it
secrets.
or not, there is yet another treasure chest at the end of this thing. Got a weak point reticle. not
Oh,
bad.
but then right when you get the secret, they try to ambush you. That's hilarious.
Go into any details there.
I love it how all that was 3D modeled, right? He shot his gun into the tops of the roofs, and it bounces off.
You know,
This is interesting. I've never seen this before. Gotta go back and play
You're
this
not
level.
expecting this many treasure chests and only the 4th area.
Oh, nice. So again, another wind enemy, but this time it's coupled with these other kinds of enemies that create these horizontal fields that you don't want to pass through. So one way or another, you either have to take out the two guys on the left or take out the guy in the middle to stay safe.
I seem to actually be doing kind of well for myself. Was that the way I came? Please tell me it wasn't. Totally was. I have good sense of direction, guys. I don't know why talking like a caveman gets across that I have a bad sense of direction any better than it would if I just talked in normal voice, but oh well, I already did it. 2 treasure chests at the end of this intensity gate. You get some goods and hearts, and you get a flintlock staff. Once again, staffs are really good for
Piece of forward dash.
we got 2 reapers in this room right here. I'm going to hold off for just a moment before we
See, look, some stealthing elements, but just super light. Oh, well, he saw him through the door. That was bad. He should have done that. Backwards dash charge shot does the most damage. He probably should have saved his energy for that. He's not a very good
I thought it was out of his line of
cannon
sight.
player.
Okay. I'll take
I don't know what game wouldn't work well on the Wii
have
U.
no complaints.
That's also on the 3DS. The Wii U is like a big 3DS for grown-ups.
Seriously, how do you not hear me? What, Reapers are... Reapers lack hearing. Is there anything on mythology about that? And, oh my god. I will gladly take a gum gum fruit. I'm sorry, but it looks like one. It really does.
Gummy berry
It's like
juice.
purple and it's got like
So, like,
strawberries
when you
all
go-
over it. It's got like that vine, and I'm gonna check out this
When you go
movie
into
today.
this place, you have enemies.
I don't know what you call this, gum gum vine. Actually, no, there's rubber and plants, so I guess that would actually make a lot of sense. I mean, heck, it used to be called tree gum, before it was called rubber.
Oh, cool. He was getting attacked from behind right there. What a nice twist. Except for now he's going back when he doesn't want to.
Alright, back here to this jump pad. I just kind of wanted to cut that because it was kind of a long way back.
It's a long level.
You know what I mean.
Jeez.
And then we have yet another room full of reapers. I mean, I know that they say
All right,
level,
easily understood lines of sight, easy timers to stealth your way around.
I don't get it. There is yet another demon vine over there if we want to grab it, if we want to follow these reapers around and try to sneak.
I like this part because if you have jump glide, you can skip a lot of this junk.
I'm just gonna blast through these crates and move on to the next area. And once again, we have yet another side path that has yet another treasure chest. I know, they really overdid it with the secrets here. I mean, for this early, there's no way you get all these in your first try. Well, I don't know, I'm gonna have tons of people telling me like, oh, come on.
Yeah, but the Wii U version would probably use the
especially those exact words
Splatoon controls.
Let's drop down. And if we're not mistaken, we are coming up to this. Yeah, now that we have that cyclone, we have a bunch of flying enemies. These will make quick work of those. They'll just kind of suck in flying enemies. Any flying enemies on top of it will get just torn apart. It's actually a pretty helpful item. Cyclone's kind of weird. It's got like a bit of a small hit radius, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, these people don't know how to make this to play this game very well, but this guy's not doing too bad. If you want to see like really good play, I like going with the raptor claws and meleeing everything. Man, I love my raptor claws.
Grind rail here. I think this is the only instance of this in the entire game, though. But you're going to be shooting these targets to make the grind rail extend while you're grinding on it. And I don't think this happens.
This just proves how good your aiming is on 3DS. I can't believe this game exists. This is crazy.
Shooting while grinding and get used to it because the way the camera is, it's not all that different from shooting on the ground. It's kind of that. Still, it's really awesome. Go tunes.
So he finds more stuff, encounters more enemies. He gets here right at the end. There's a Reaper hiding in the bath, but you can throw a smart bomb in it. It's hilarious.
It's really easy to take out that Reaper if you have the smart bomb. You might as well just try to take him out and just do some forward and back dash shots.
It's hilarious. They're even doing a theme and variation on the way they heal you, right? Look at the timers come back again, and we're nearly at the end of the level. And Reapers come out of this one. They hurt you a little bit, but they really don't do much. And then now it's for the final boss battle. He gets big. This boss is cool. You have to injure him in two phases, right? But you can start off by hurting just his feet, or you can shoot his face, right? So if you're on the bottom level, you might want to just go for the feet, but then he stomps, so then you go back on the top level. Now he's already weak. This is the second phase where he does different attacks, right?
Meet the Great Reaper, like they were saying. This thing
and he's gonna do
a
laser move. You need to dodge right before the lasers come out. And now he's nearly dead, and he goes into his ultimate swing, and you can kill him before he even gets his claw down. Yep.
The area on its head, and that's it. He actually didn't even get to use his scythe, which is kind of a shame because one of his cooler looking attacks.
Yeah, you know. So do you see what happened here? The on-rail spiral that happens right about here.
No, I'm gonna have tons of people telling me like,
right here, trains you on looking up vertically without losing your orientation. In the boss battle here, you shoot up without losing your orientation. Whoa! Whoa, it's level design. Nobody talks about it, but this is actually the best kind. Not only was there enemy variation and a ton of secrets and secrets behind secrets and layered areas and enemy combinations that were awesome and 3 different main gameplay types, but they even help train you for each other type. The gaseous monsters and the Reapers were in the first flying section. They're on foot. They're on the foot sections, and you can see them in combinations. The wind guy was used 3 or 4 times in different combinations, trying to suck you off a platform or into other enemies. And then finally, learning how to grind rails and shoot oriented you to vertical shooting, which if you weren't familiar with it previously, then you are familiar with it now to see how close pit looks when you're shooting vertically. And that's why this stuff is not disorienting, because you had practice. And if you still couldn't get that, you can shoot the feet, but at the very end you have to come up here and shoot him in the head.
2 layers to its battlefield that has some high attacks and some low attacks. Peaks and valleys, highs and lows, pick your friends.
And you notice this battlefield is a giant ring, right? Just like the ring practice room that we just discussed. So all in this video you get to see tons of stuff Kid Icarus is doing, including, you know, some of my favorite boss designs. So this is not on the hardest difficulty, so the boss is taken down relatively easily. But bosses that get taken out fairly quickly, I like that, instead of long slogs. Bosses that have weak points instead of just a big soaking hurt box. So this guy has his head and his feet, and only the head at the second phase. Bosses that react to where you are, he stomps when you're on the ground, and he shoots stuff at you when you're on the top. And going back and forth is a good way to avoid his attacks. So embedded. So this level has embedded mobility, contextual to the uniqueness and the size of the boss encounter, right? If you weren't that big, you don't need all that movement, but because he's that big, in order to frame the action and not have it to where you're awkwardly climbing the stairs, because this level does have stairs, but it gives you jump pads, which are so much easier to use, because you've been using jump pads the whole level. Do you remember the traps, the pitfall areas? It had jump pads. And remember some of the other areas, it had jump pads. You should be familiar with finding and using jump pads by now. The boss is only oriented towards the center of the screen. You can hardly even spin the camera backwards, though the sides of the arena are pitch black and focuses you on the middle. Like, this is simple and obvious good stuff.
You just have to strike the area on its head
It
and
hits him in the face.
Nice work, kid.
Kid Icarus level design is so good, I'm so surprised that Sakurai was able to pull this off. It's completely based on my experiences with Meteos and Brawl Subspace Emissary. I didn't even think he could do a single player game, but this is like one of my favorite games of all time.
What's that, kid?
Even though I almost died, I really enjoyed our time
And look,
together.
this freaking Kid Icarus has a better story than all of Uncharted and The Last of Us anyway. And like its animation and voice acting is right up there with it anyway. So everyone needs to back off. This game is better. Get over it. It's still all a video game too. Get over that. Why would I want to see a long slog? Yeah, I love the boss design in this game. You can absolutely wreck these bosses. Boss rush hard. Oh, this person did boss rush, no power-ups.
Willkommen zum Boss Rush von Kid Icarus.
You don't speak English.
Die Arbeit angemacht zu Sophie.
Oh, let's see. Oh, whoa, he has a +6, a 4-star with a +6 modifier and a -2 on sprint. Ooh, that's an interesting minus you want to take, but maybe he's going to use walking instead, which isn't a bad trade-off. I feel like the pros and con trade-off of this weapon upgrade system was overpowered. It needed more cons for the extreme pros that you could get for some of these weapons. Ooh, -4 sprint, jeez. Oh, it's going to actually show?
Tja, ansonsten.
Whoa, that did 219. No, yeah, it did about 219 damage.
Das dauert.
That's pretty strong, okay. Yeah, well, I hadn't had too much experience playing Kirby Superstar back then, but you know, Kirby, those games are cool, but they're not nearly as cool as Kid Icarus Uprising, right? He restarted his boss rush already? Yeah, he's gonna restart it. This guy needs to edit out his mistakes. Come on, man. So this is one thing I see a lot of people do when they're in a bad learning phase, and they're so straightforward into spamming their strategy that they don't even take the adjustments halfway through, because these bosses do different attacks, and it's not all set in stone. So when they make little mistakes and they just reset it, quit taking your chances with dice rolls and play the game. Now, I didn't set a world record, but I did beat it with not a super strong weapon. I just beat it by playing the game, and it was one of the best gameplay challenges. Man, you could totally have anticipated the guy's roll right there. That's a strong weapon. No, not Dark Souls. Who cares about that thing? So, even though I like these videos showing how quickly you can destroy these bosses, right? To a lesser extent, it's all about how strong your weapons are, and like that. And when your weapon's too strong, you don't have to play with as much strategy. And I was like playing my mind out when I was playing these challenges. But this guy's doing a pretty good job. See how quickly he takes a Reaper down the next stage, and you can keep hitting him as long as his weak spot's exposed. That's what I really like. And then the different stages exposes his, or sends him into a hit stun, so you can risk reward and take your chances and with your aim. I like that a lot. Kill that girl. Okay. The Dark Pit is so hard. He's such a jerk. He needs to calm down after Dark Pit shoots, because then he gets a clear opportunity to hit him. And he needs to stop doing backwards shots when he's not dodging Dark Pit, because then he's just leaving himself open to attack. That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, you could play better. But that's alright. It's got a lot of different stages, and that little red weak point, I like this boss a lot. Giant foot. And this boss takes longer. His own sword gets caught up on his own swords. I like that. Beats him. I like this boss a lot. You use 3D sound in order to pinpoint what's about to attack you. Except for this guy didn't, so he got hit. Yeah, this is what I see from a lot of people who try to go for high scores. They just spam like the one move over and over. Like, you could also take less damage and burn less stamina by frickin' playing the game like normal. Also, I don't think he's doing a good job managing his damage output. If you knew how many volleys you needed to do to take out each of these tentacles, you don't have to do a dash shot every time. You can just do normal standing shots. Like right here should be standing shots, or a charge shot. Yeah, he was too close. It's not even dodging properly. This guy, he's probably planning on healing anyway, so he just did that. Oh, he didn't heal. Oh, because it's Medusa, you can easily take out Medusa. I don't think there are level 9 boss rushes that don't have an overpowered weapon. I mean, that's how everyone plays this game, right? Boss rush 6.0, no powers. Oh, what 6.0? Everyone plays this game by building cheap weapons and then spamming rolls. But this, okay, let's see what this person does. Yeah, actually showcasing the dodges. That's right. This person looks better. Much better. I don't think there's a no damage run, but I haven't looked. So look, running around this boss in the big 3D arena on the top is cool because it has a big circular sight, so no matter where you are, it's going to find you. But it makes the battle really interesting. Dodge, 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 and sometimes a fourth, yep, and then you're good. That was some good fighting right there. Let's go here. So this is the fight right after Medusa, I think. Yeah, it is. So this fight's really cool. Freaking Phoenix has all these different types of attacks. The 3D-ness of this boss is really hard to deal with unless you have a really fast firing weapon. And then like you have to listen to what sounds it's doing even when it's not on screen. It's pretty intense. And then if you hit its head enough, it'll go into a stun state and fall over. Otherwise, you have to just give it enough damage while it's still in the air, which is hard. Oh, see, that shot didn't make it because he's using a, what does it look like? What kind of gun is that? A artillery claw? Oh, look, he shot it in the head enough. Look, it takes more damage in its head. You know how I know it takes more damage in its head? Because the freaking high-pitched sound effect lets you know if you're hitting a weak spot, an armored spot, or a normal spot. And you don't even have to freaking like use glowing points. You can just use sound design. And I love this. I can tell every time his shot hits a weak spot just from the sound of it. That was normal. That was weak spot. And that was normal. He killed it with a normal shot. See, that boss had a lot going on, and it gets pretty intense. And it's all about how well you are at aiming. Kragelynch is pretty cool, because his weak point's on his back, so it's about circle strafing. This whole boss. You're supposed to line up and circle strafe perfectly, hit him in the weak spot, and then pepper on the damage. Yeah, it looks like he has artillery claws. And then he has various timing attacks that have different timing. Then he has different levels of homing on them too. Oh, weak spot exposed. Yeah, I like this video much better. I'll give this guy a like. And the boss, so he didn't have the best weapon for taking out this boss, but it's still, that was a quick boss, right? Like, dodge him about 3 times and do the cycle and then defeat him. All under 30 minutes, 30 seconds, a minute. I wasn't keeping track. Oh, this boss is cool. You use hard shots to hit enemies into the gap to reveal this egg's weak point, and then you shoot it as much as possible. And then it puts its shield back up, so then you hit another enemy into it. With the forward dash shard shot. There you go. Hits him inside, blows up, and then you just wail on the egg. Yep. He's gonna grab a health. You have to. You have to. How long is it to rip you up? He's just counting his health. You better grab that health. How long is it to rip you up? This guy's hard to fight. I specifically put on homing power on my bottom screen for this fight alone, because when it goes dark I need to put on lots of damage, and you can't use sound, and you can use your reticle that turns red to find out where he is, right? See how he's doing that? The yellow bars at the top and bottom of the screen tell you where the threats are coming in case you're not spinning in the right direction anyway. It tells you when the incoming threat's coming, so that's pretty cool. And because the bullets move slowly enough in this game for the most part, you know, you have time to spin the camera and dodge, which is like so much better than just taking bullets and going, I'll regen my health. Like, this game has almost everything I like about game design, like all in one, right? No regenerating health, enemies that are designed with like classic Nintendo style with different types and they mix and match them, level elements actually and structures that matter, really cool core mechanics, and then awesome music. Like, come on. So see, this fight always takes long because it's hard to get in your good shots because he's moving all over the place, but he needs to use continuous fire. Or not. That was a good R-long fight. I ripped this girl up. I had a melee claw, so I would just keep running straight at her and then cutting through her paralyzing attacks with melee attacks, and then basically destroy her in like 4 strikes.
Are you even trying?
Yeah, now this guy's using continual fire, which is so pro. The other guy was not pro. Like, look at how this guy's strafing and circling very effectively. Kind of messed up his aim right there, but that's okay. It took a little bit of damage. And then he needs to be calm. Calm down. Okay, this dragon's kind of hard to dodge. He needs to find the hole and run through the electricity instead of circling all the time. It's not about circling everything. It's about finding your moments. But that's what I learned by being a melee attacker. I'm like, you can't just run away from everything when you're a melee attacker. You have to run at them. See how this battle's taking a little bit longer? I finished this battle like in 1/3 of the time. Oh, so shoot! Use your continuous fire. Continuous fire. See, now you guys also notice when he does his dash charge shot, the bullets go in and spray like this horizontally, and he's not correcting his aim as he shoots, so he can get all 4 or 5 hits to hit on the same dot target. So he's really wasting his time doing that anyway. There's all kinds of sort of fighting game-esque command movements that are possible in this game when you want to optimize your bullet spread that I think are really neat. This is such a cool game. It blows my mind still to this day. This is a cool fight because there's fights like this in other games, but you shoot the nodes around the thing in the center, and then the floor is constantly changing, so this is like a fancy footwork and aiming boss, right? And if you let things go too long and try to ignore the stuff on the outside, it just gets harder, but it's not impossible. The boss, at least I can still floor zap you. So this is a cool boss because it keeps, you have to look at what the pattern is on the floor. And even though your eyes are pretty much fixed on the top middle, the floor is actually where the danger comes in. So you have to look up and down, but the camera work is perfect. Like you can see everything you need to see. It's crazy for a third-person shooter game for your character not to get in the way a lot. So this is a cool boss because it's about knowing the range of your weapons. You can almost fire on the center at all times depending on which color you pick. And if you're a long-range weapon, you can actually take the blue color and circle the outside and snipe at your optimal range. Otherwise, if you're a melee attacker, you're pretty much out of luck. So he's going to take the red and go underneath it because he's using continual fire, and I've done that before too. But this boss looks amazing, and if you think it's just like a free ride, the stuff on the outside actually can start to hit you if you're not careful. And you can actually shoot them before they get to you, like you just did right there. So like, and you have to actually look at what threats are going to be on the chords that you're on. So it's a relatively easy boss, but it's one of the few bosses that are completely on rails, and it allows you to hop between 3 rails. It's super unique. And not everything has to be like super hard, right? That level was particularly long and hard, so they give you a relatively easy boss. And I think all these alien bosses were pretty easy, but it's still super interesting. So this is another, just as like all 3 bosses put together, right? Hit the thing into the middle to expose the core, hit the outside things on the outside to weaken the core, and then the danger that comes below. Whoops! Oh yeah, and I guess it's kind of like it's on rails too because you're on a giant moving platform that's constantly moving. So this is kind of like the culmination of all the 3 styles you learned before, but not exactly. Look, you have to watch the floor and then time that correctly, like super cool. But if you have jump glide, you can just glide over it, which I did. If you have celestial fireworks, you can invincible parry it, which I did. So many different ways to do it, but they give you one universal way just in case you don't have powers. Good fight. Oh, this is so hard. So hard. This is a fight I wish I had a lot more practice with, but in order to get to Pit, you have to play a long level in the single player, in level 9, which is hard enough. So like, you don't get a lot of chances to practice with this character you've only played for this level. But this guy's doing a great job learning how to stare Pit down and get his counterattacks in, but it's still freaking hard. Get knocked 1/3 off your health, like, it's so punishing, I can't believe it. I would have toned down the difficulty on this boss a little bit. This is why no one has a no-hit run of this boss rush, because Pit is so hard to fight, and Dark Pit as well. You see how he's like biding his time and then does a flying melee attack and then Pit clashes it. Yeah. That's why he's putting these funny comments down here. This battle is so hard. And sometimes you're like, just swing, because you gotta hope for the best. And the only reason that just swinging is good is because you have a heavier weapon. So Pit's weapon, when he clashes with you, will most likely lose. Definitely grabs a health. Okay, so this is a sweet fight where you're controlling the chariot and aiming. So you can control your forward and back speed and left and right. You can get ahead of the boss, and it's like a race and a battle at the same time. You can even get close enough to melee him. What a unique boss, right? There's nothing else like this in the game. And look, he'll zoom ahead, and then you have to dodge the stuff coming in from the left and right, including lightning. You dodge the lightning by changing your chariot, but you dodge the little flames by dashing within your chariot. So it's a nice mix. It's a super unique boss. And it looks so pretty. He's dead. Oh, so here's one of the coolest bosses. Okay, so you're not supposed to shoot Palutena, but there is a Chaos Kid nearby. So she shoots stuff at you, and you can kind of see dust where the Chaos Can is. And she summons enemies sometimes, so you gotta like keep track of what she's doing, and then you shoot this tiny little dust on top of her. So here's my favorite attack in the game. She says, cover your eyes. Right here. cover your eyes. And then she makes this really bright flash, and the only way you can not get blinded is if you literally turn your aim away. And right when it flashes like that, you can turn back. It took me a while to figure out how to counter that, but man, that's one of the coolest things. You spin the bottom screen so fast, the flash happens, and you're right back in the action. It's so cool. It's so cool. You can't really dash through the purple smoke so easily because it moves so slowly. So you have to, even though you have a really good invincible dash dodge, like it's not good for everything. Watch out. Yeah, you gotta run back from that. That's good. This guy's good. This guy, he obviously has speed modifiers. This is kind of ridiculous. His walk speed's incredible. He's taking a lot of damage too. And now, see, he covered his eyes right there? But she didn't say cover your eyes. It was just a visual tell. So if you're not paying attention to what you're fighting, you're gonna miss that one and be blind. It's such a good fight. Oh my goodness. Or here's the Chaos Kin. So you have Dark Pit to help you here. And there's traps in the environment in case you're not fast enough. But obviously he's playing a fast character. And you can move around the environment with these jumps. It's kind of hard if you're not a fast character. But you know, this Chaos Kin you can kind of kill pretty easily from afar by shooting it. So it's not that big of a deal. It takes this guy a long time because he's not that good at aiming. See? Dead. Took him a while. Okay, so this is, yeah, Amazon. Pandora. She comes back. She has this thing where she fakes death, which is pretty cool. But she look how she litters the battlefield with traps and then teleports to them to kick them at you. But you could also kick them at her, right? Before she gets to him. Fakes death. Rises again, and then shoots stuff at you. You're like, you jerk. So where's she gonna be? Teleport to one of those thingies and kick him at you? Right there, and she shoots it after you, and the other ones explode. But you can use them against her. It's pretty cool. Yeah, those hard shoots, they have a paralysis property. Just use continuous fire. You don't need to do the dash shots. Okay, oh, so this is one of the hardest fights in the boss rush. Depending on what weapon you have, it's incredibly hard to fight this guy. But you need a weapon that does high damage. And then getting away from his little spawn is super hard. But if you have speed, you can get out. You can get away. I didn't have a lot of speed. Look how fast he moves. Well, if you can run that fast, then certainly. So now, when you piss that guy off, he tries to chase you. So you got to make sure you get into the corner, so you can predict where he's gonna come at you. And then, oh man, he almost got trapped. That was crazy. I think this boss is a little too hard. But essentially, if you have a weapon with high homing, you can shoot over the walls. This boss is designed to accentuate those kinds of weapons with high homing. High homing, high homing. That was a nice maneuver to get out of that. And sometimes the boss will set down little mines for you. Yeah, and I was like, this guy's doing way too well on this boss. This is hard. And then look, there's a mine. This boss is hard. Yeah. So you can technically shoot above the stage, but he needs to make sure he does as much damage as he can, because when the boss goes into furious mode like that, he can't be damaged. At least not a lot, not easily. He needs to maximize his damage. And when the guy gets too close to you, you can't even dash away, right? Because you're constantly moving away and he's constantly forcing you to dash. You have to walk. It's not easy. Yeah, see how you can hit him from afar in these little gaps? Ooh, this guy's getting burned. He needs to shoot. He's in trouble. Yeah, he's... Oh my gosh. So he has healing. And he didn't even need to use that. Oh, so you can also bring Slipshot to shoot through the walls, but yeah, it's hard. See how he like creates 3 layers of his traps, mines, a clone, and himself. And the only thing you can do to get around his super fast self is to dodge through him, right? That's super hard, but I think I know what the trick is. If you're not a fast character, you have to hit him and then go into an area where the maze is more complex. Instead of just him circling around you with one tight loop, you're supposed to go into an area where he has to make a much bigger loop, and then you trick him out by going to another section and trick his AI out. That's pretty complicated for a boss.
Thanks.
So this is Magnus and Gal. Before you fought with him to fight against the Gal, and now that you're fighting both of them. It's kind of like a rehash boss, which is really cool because, you know, these two enemies are very unique in themselves, and you get to fight them together instead of teaming up against one of them. That's very different. This guy plays a little safe. I would have finished these guys off a long time ago. I have really good aim with my weapons that have good damage. So this is zombie Palutena. Very similar to the other Palutena, except for this one attacks much more aggressively. See, like already we've seen 3 different types of projectiles. So some you shoot, yeah. See how much you have to move to get around it, but if you shoot those slow-moving shields, they shoot back at you. So you're really supposed to wait for the pink things to dodge. He's not doing too good of a job. You wait for the pink things to dodge, and then you just walk calmly left and right. And then keep your continuous fire up. It'll protect you. See? Dang. Yeah, so he keeps dodging in one direction too. Another thing you might want to do is dodge in different directions, right? Because you know if everything's homing you, then you can trick it out. But this is the final boss of the game, right? You're fighting this armor. It has this like setup where one hit kills you if you don't get off of the floor. And I died on one of my runs on hard mode. So sad. I was so sad. But I used to work on this with my commute to work. I have about an hour-long commute to work when I still worked at a law firm. This is one of the fastest ways to make the trip disappear. I was like, oh, I'm already at work. I play so many video games at work. No joke, I was playing Fire Emblem and Pokemon and so many different games. Oh, here's it. Is this it? Yeah, he did it. So yeah, Kid Icarus Uprising. I just talked about the bosses, but that just shows you how different all the bosses were. Different kinds of movement, different kinds of arenas, different shapes, sizes, different weak points, different attack patterns, different moves, different summoning abilities. And they accentuate different parts of the entire game, including homing shots and slip shots and extra powers, verticality, circular arenas, enemies that fight just like you with your same abilities, enemies that don't fight like you with your abilities, a target to hit, a target not to hit, like a duel battle or 2 versus 1, and so on, 3 versus 1, 1 versus the environment, all these different combinations. Such a good game. Now that's a game, and I can't say jack about Uncharted 4. There's like a couple of encounters and they're not distinct enough, and the gameplay doesn't seem to have enough design space for me to actually make these kinds of claims. It's just the same kind of one note thing and it's gone in a blink of an eye. Right here, gone through, I forgot how many bosses there are, but like 23 bosses or something. And that's not even all the bosses in the game. They didn't do Hades, and they didn't do, there's another one they didn't do, but they cut out a few just because they wouldn't be appropriate for boss rush. So like, this is great. Like, this is a game. This is what happens when you make your game out of cool stuff that you can do. And it's cool because you only take one set of powers in for the whole boss rush, so when you use them up, they're gone. And you only can pick one weapon, so you can't like optimize each boss. Like, I'll use this one weapon, let's see how far you can get. I beat the game with a, I believe a claw, which I believe the claws and the swords are the closest to being the middle of the road weapons. Swords have better long range and decent melee. Claws have better melee and decent short range, decent range. Then the stabs have like the greatest range, and the clubs have great melee and often great range, but they're super slow. And you get a mix of other things too, like palms are great rapid fire and great refresh, but not high on damage and not high on accuracy. So they use homing a lot, and you got just about every single combination that touches every corner of the design space. So just to wrap up, Kid Icarus Uprising better completely than Uncharted 4, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.